be a problem.
Good.
No
You're
problem.
feeling it. You're feeling it. You're feeling it. Oh, come on. Outstanding.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Underrated Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss the films that we feel are underrated, underappreciated, or ones that have just slipped under the radar and passed most people by. I'm Derek McDuff, and with me are Fred and Alan Torres.
Hey, what's up?
How's it going?
Ariel Ortiz.
Hi.
And our special guest from the In Quest of Geek podcast, Jason Patrick Galit.
Hi, guys. How you doing? Oh, thank you.
I stepped right on that. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
Today, we're going to be talking about Smokin Aces, a 2007 film written and directed by Joe Carnahan. The movie has an ensemble cast of, let me take a deep breath here, Ryan Reynolds, Jeremy Piven, Ben Affleck, Chris Pine, Alicia Keys, Common, Ray Liotta, Andy Garcia, Tommy Flanagan, Taraji P. Henson, Nestor Carbonell, Jason Bateman, Peter Berg, Martin Henderson, Joel Egerton, and Matthew Fox. And while the film succeeded at the box office, it was torn down by critics and only has a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. This film was actually suggested to us by our guest today. So, Jason, I don't know if you wanted to start us off and tell us what led you to suggest this film as an underrated movie for us to check out.
Well, first off, I had to check the Rotten Tomatoes score for this just to make sure that it fit your guys' criteria for the show. But I have a weird thing for early 2000s action films. And, like, the weirder they are, like, the better they are for me, right? And I remember seeing this film and thinking, "Oh my gosh, this has so many popular people across the pop culture spectrum." And then, like, I knew nobody who saw it.
I saw it in theaters, actually.
Oh God, that makes me feel so much better.
I saw it at theaters, and I actually only went in knowing that, of course, Ryan Reynolds, basically who was on the poster, I think, so it was Ryan Reynolds, Common, Jeremy Piven, Alicia Keys. Those are the only ones that I knew going in, and then watched the movie completely. Didn't recognize Chris Pine, of course, because his character just is kind of unrecognizable if you don't pay attention, and kind of like, I think a little bit more now, so he would be recognizable, but back then this was pre Star Trek, pre Wonder Woman, so but I knew of Chris Pine. But yeah, so I didn't recognize him on first glance. But this movie, I have always loved it. I don't understand why it kind of got bad reviews. Especially looking back at it now, just the pacing of it is really good in my opinion. It doesn't like have any time to take a breath, or take these long pauses of like exposition that other movies of this kind could have taken. So even especially right now, it was like I remembered like the fast pacedness of this movie, and kind of was super surprised of how quickly everything happened, because I didn't remember exactly like how fast it happened. And I knew, of course, like what things were going to happen, but yeah, it's still the fast pacedness, and Ryan Reynolds, I think, kind of gets shoeboxed in a way that when you come across these movies that kind of show a different side to him, and show that he actually is pretty good outside of a comedic standpoint in his films, especially for this one, even though it's a small part but it ends up being a very big part of the movie. And just I'll talk about it later, but the final scene in his is one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best final scenes of a movie. It's so memorable to me that that's why I wanted to watch this movie. And I had put it on our list previously. So I was like, once you suggested it, I was like, yes, let's do it. I've been wanting to do this movie just for that final scene alone, but also the entire movie. But that final scene alone is just worth recognition.
Yeah, no, I fucking love that last scene. It gives me chills. Like, whenever I see it. Because up till that point, you're like, oh, this is just kind of like a fun, like kind of dumb action movie, and then the last scene of the last, like kind of recontextualizes everything you've seen. It's one of those movies that, like The Prestige or something, when you watch it a second time, you're like, everything makes so much more sense now.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you mentioned Chris Pine as well. 2 years before this, his largest role was one of the other princes in The Princess Diaries 2.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I knew him. I knew him because he was the prince. The prince that was trying to take Mia Thermopolis's crown away.
Yeah, and this was that's why I was like, wait a minute, this is Chris Pine.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually forgot that he was in this film. I remembered everybody else except him. And so seeing him, and I'm like, oh my god, is that Chris Pine?
He was just so creepy of a character too. Like watching him, one thing, like I know Ben Affleck is even most people don't know that he is open to like doing kind of weird things, especially if you see like any of the Kevin Smith movies that he's in. He's okay with doing like pretty weird things, but yeah, to allow Chris Pine to basically like move his mouth as a puppet while he was like is supposed to be dead was just kind of creepy and like kind of like didn't sit right with me.
I remember, watching that scene, and I was like, "This must have been so weird to shoot." Just like sitting there, but I fucking loved all the characters. It's weird to think about, like these people who are like Chris Pine, and then like that was the first movie. Like he was famous before, but that was Common's first movie, and now he's almost more of like an actor than he is a musician. And then Alicia Keys, it was her first movie.
He's won an Academy Award for his work as a music, but okay.
Well, I mean,
I was gonna be like, slow your roll. Common,
he does,
like
he
water
does
for
a lot
chocolate.
of both now. He's good. He does a lot, but like now he's pretty much as well known as an actor as he is, as a musician. Like he's on Hell on Wheels, and like he's in all these movies and stuff. So like I feel like he really kind of like got some untapped talent in here, because even like Joel Egerton has got a pretty tiny role in this. Like he doesn't even get a mention in the credits, but Matthew Fox, who was only in it for like 3 seconds, does, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah, I knew because I had forgotten that he was in it, and then until today when I watched it, and then right away I was like, Dick's gonna like this part. And then he died. Yeah. He kind of pretty much dies the same way that he dies in Lost, where he gets like stabbed.
Spoilers.
It's a 12-year finale.
Richard Alpert didn't stab them.
They're
Lost.
in space.
They've been dead since the show started, right, or something like that.
Oh my god!
I mean,
you guys are gonna make me lose my fucking mind right now.
They're in
not
limbo.
debatable.
It's
not
okay.
debatable. They were not dead. Oh,
well, all right. Yeah, I
they
wish Lost was Lost.
In purgatory, but whatever.
No, they didn't. They were not in. Okay, I'm not even gonna get into it. But I, that the other guy in that scene, Nestor Carbonell, he's also from Lost, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I kind of
like. Back at it again.
I kind of like wonder if like he was just like, hey, do you want to just come down and do that? Like it was like 2007, 2006 when it came out first at festivals. That he was just like, hey, you want to just come down, shoot a couple scenes for me? We got some time off from Lost. I'm doing this movie, and Matthew Fox was like, yeah, sure, why not? I could see that happening.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go with on or?
I didn't watch it recently. I hadn't seen it in like about a month or two ago. And when you guys started talking about it, I was like, I probably should have rewatched it, because like now that I'm thinking about it, the pace is really fast with it. And you guys, like when you guys were naming all these actors, I was like, oh my god, that's right. Oh my god, that's right. Oh my god, that's right. Like I felt like it just like the pacing is so fast with it. I can see why some people maybe didn't like that, because I think like Ariel, you said like there's no expedition. It's just going like this. Mm-hmm. Like even now trying to remember, and I'm like, wait, how did it go? Like it went like this, went like this, and like even scenes like that, like you guys were saying, that there's just quick scenes of like, because with the Chris Pine scene, he just like they're planning it right there outside of the casino and all that, and then boom, Ben Affleck just
they just shoot up Ben Affleck.
Yeah, like I remember I was so
they're like on the side of the road. Yeah.
Like I was like, oh man, I was so excited, because I was like, I don't know he was in this. I don't know like Ben Affleck was in this. Bam, and I was like, oh, okay.
Because they kind of build Ben Affleck up to be the main character in the beginning, and then they're just like, nope, he's dead. This is kind of just an ensemble. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, one of the main guys that have like horse in the race, kind of, so to speak, but their horse gets sent to the glue factory pretty quickly.
To the gulag.
The gulag.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I dug it. I definitely, it is like one of those movies you do have to rewatch just to kind of pick up on things. Because like now looking back, I'm like, damn, there was a lot of things that you pick up over rewatching it. I think also too, though, like just kind of being devil's advocate and all that. Like, I think maybe the reason why it wasn't so popular was because of the pacing. Because when I did ask people, I'm like, have you seen Smokin' Aces? They're like, I don't know, man. It seems like it's too much. There's like 50 people in that movie. And I remember even seeing like trailers and commercials where they're like, it's da 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 da. I feel like after a while they're like, we're it's too much. Maybe that people kind of shy away from it because they're like, there's just too many cooks, I guess.
I think that's a trend that's like kind of been
nowadays, yeah.
Nowadays, yeah.
Yeah, with the Avengers and all the crossover films, all the comic book movies, nowadays it might just be one of those things where it was a little too ahead of its time. I mean, there are films where they have like a whole ensemble film or an ensemble cast, but I think this was just way too big. Maybe like people just felt like, especially with that too, with the Ben Affleck scene, like with me, people go, "Oh, cool! Oh, this guy's in it, or this girl's in it." You know, that's awesome. They're gone, and you're like, "Oh."
Yeah, if I can jump in on this one. Yeah, that's the feeling I got. Look, I like the movie. It's action, just like the old action movies, like Rambo and Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the days when you were watching them in the 90s, those movies, 80s movies that you'd watch action movies on like UPN or Channel 13 or 11 or whatever when you were a kid. It's got that feeling of like action, just constant action. It does have a story, and if the story is good, it's just I'll jump on that topic where you were there, Alan. It is jumpy. It's really fast. You don't get a lot of time with each character. They do throw enough at you, so maybe you feel for some of them, but it's never enough. How can I put it? Like exposition or enough feeling for you to feel for them. It's just like here's an assassin, boom, he's dead, and let's move on to the next one until you whittle down to the core of the guys. Which at the same time, for maybe your average moviegoer that just kind of there, it just seems like a lot. Because with like Avengers or even like let's just say Fast and the Furious, right? Who has a big ensemble cast, they don't throw everybody in the first movie. By the time you reach 9, there's a bunch of characters.
That's when you bring in the family.
Yeah, but if you started with like the first one, it was just a couple of them. If you're a new guy jumping in on 9, you might be like, well, what the hell is this? There's so many guys. Or the same thing, you watch Endgame, you go, what the hell is all these people? It's too much. But then they go, hey, go watch the first ones. It'll give you that story and the backstory of everybody and all the stuff that you need. I think this movie was cool. I love the action. The sniper shooting the people across the building was amazing. Her then seeing the chick, thinking that the chick is with a guy now, that was cool. That one made me kind of laugh a little bit. She felt a little jealous, a little betrayed, I guess it seemed like.
I thought, like, actually, when I was watching, I was thinking, like, you don't get a lot of time with any of these characters,
no.
But I think it still does a really good job of making you care about them. Like, each of them feel unique without them being necessarily
they
gimmicky.
feel unique because they're over the top on some of them. Because the ones that you feel for are more normal, like you're the two officers, right? You kind of go through the story with them. They tend to be more plain, more normal.
But also,
but they give you a lot of that, and that's Ryan Reynolds. You know what I'm saying? Like them being the FBI agents, they're a lot more plain than some of these other guys. Some of these characters are just they got like crazy accents or they're wildly dressed, so you'll remember them because of their personalities over the actual who they were.
Yeah, but I feel like their personalities they come through more organically than something like, oh, like Suicide Squad. How do we make this character memorable? Oh, we give him a pink unicorn, or whatever it might be. Whereas, like, I think it had a lot to do with like a lot of the stuff that went in behind the scenes. Like, there was a lot of character work. Like, the director was talking about how he gave each actor different playlists. Like, he gave Chris Pine and his Nazi brothers, like he would like give them like Motorhead and stuff to listen to, where it would give Ryan Reynolds and Ray Liotta like kind of more like classical like big band stuff. So like that they would. So these characters do have kind of distinct personalities.
No, and
it just being like
you know what? With you saying that music, it makes sense. If you look at those guys, they look like they would be like metalheads.
Yeah,
that's what they look like. And the cops, obviously, I would think they'd listen to Frank Sinatra because they look like normal. What you would think of when you say an FBI agent, that's what an FBI agent would be.
Yeah, and I think
and that's what I was trying to say. Like that's how come you can remember them. That's what I'm saying. They did the characters well. Their backstories is where I'm saying like because there's so many, I don't think you can have super crazy backstories for these guys because
Yeah.
it's quick. Even the assassin guy who was in the wheelchair, like blowing on it, and then next thing you know, takes off his mask and it's this white dude with a scar. And so they give things like, I'll remember the scar. You see him, he's bald, he's got a scar, like a big scar across his mouth. They'll give you things so you can remember, it's this guy, it's that guy, it was this, it was that. I applaud that. I applaud that because they were able to make you remember these people, whether you're going to remember their names or not, whether you're going to remember everything. You're going to remember them because they made them distinct enough that you're going to know each group. You know, the group that looked like like the cops, the
bounty hunters.
The Motorhead guys, like the Motorhead guys, all psychoed out. Yeah. You know, each group. You got like Common, and you know they look like rappers, you know, like hip hop guys, and then with that Russian guy who jizzed all over the jacket. That was hilarious. You know, God
damn it, Uncle Owen.
I think they did a good job. I think they did a good job for what it was, but I do think it's one of those movies that, you know, at the time was that in? I think that's always the thing that we run into with these movies. Was that still in at the time when the movie came out? If this would have been a few years back, and the time of like action movies, this thing would have been a hit. Mm-hmm. Remember the Italian Job and all those other movies? They did well. This would have been one of the movies up there with those. But in the time frame that it came out in, I gotta wonder.
Well, it did well financially, but yeah, critically, it might have been burnout if that's the case. That it came out at a time when there was like this upsurgence of these kind of action movies. But I think going back to how all these characters are presented and doing it in a way where it's the FBI agents of Ryan Reynolds and Ray Liotta kind of like being debriefed kind of brings you into that area of like what this is, and it's kind of like brings you into how fast paced this kind of situation could be. Like they were in DC first, and then New York, and then jumping all around, and then I think that might add to kind of connecting to Ryan Reynolds' character and Ray Liotta's character, because you are kind of like on that fast-paced journey with them too. And then I did enjoy very much like going back on how they kind of presented Ryan Reynolds and Ray Liotta. They didn't do too much, but you felt for Ryan Reynolds when he lost Ray Liotta and like trying to save him and all that. And I think they did a lot with like effectively in this short amount of time, and kind of didn't over boggle me, which is like a very impressive thing with this big cast. Yeah.
I think for me, when it comes to this film, whenever I usually talk about things on my show, it's mostly about like comic books and video games and pop culture in general, right? But something that I'm really, really nerdy about are heist films. And I always kind of equate assassin films to heist films as well, because assassin films are just heist films, but they're trying to steal a life at this point, right? And so I love these types of films, and to me, I kind of equate this type of film to not it's like almost a Guy Ritchie film, but it's also like kind of a proto John Wick film.
Okay, yeah,
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
that is a good way to put it.
Yeah, so with John Wick, I always use John Wick as the perfect example of how to flesh out a universe without telling you anything about it, right? Mm-hmm. With this particular universe, with Smokin Aces, there are these outlandish characters. There are and these people just tend to stand out just in real life in general, right? Just however many times they gun down somebody just like in broad daylight without like anything happening to them, like was very, very surprising. But it's also, you know, John Wick kind of builds off of that sort of feeling where it's not those outlandish characters that they're pushing forward, but it's more of like a gentleman culture with John Wick that tends to do all of the outlandish killings.
Mm-hmm. So and I think it's like recognizable like genre of assassins that kind of like allow both Smokin Aces and John Wick to like jump into the deep end right away, because it's kind of like going off of tropes that exist in you know, pop culture, society, or your knowledge of that assassins kind of history.
Oh, go ahead. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought you were finishing a thought. I was like, wait.
Yeah, no. I don't know, but I mean, pretty much what I was going to say was I think the movie probably would have done a lot better if it waited like 2 more years. Because 2 more years, I'm sorry, it was 2007, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
3 more years. Sorry, 3 more years. 3 more years. 2010. I think that's when Expendables dropped, and that's when like you had the ensemble cast of all the action movie stars. I think if it had came out in 2010 or any time after that, it probably would have flourished, and we might have even saw like you were saying the like a prototype John Wick kind of like film series. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if
there was a sequel that
big.
I looked
Yeah,
up,
like a prequel. I didn't want to watch.
Really?
The prequel. Yeah,
it's like
it was like made for DVD prequel.
Yeah.
That.
Then no.
The director didn't do it, and like nobody came back except for like the guy with the scar.
But that's a weird phenomenon now too, right? Where it got made straight to DVD, so we're not going to see it. But if it releases on like Netflix or Hulu or something like that, we're way more open to watch it, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I feel like Netflix is kind of like and Hulu, like they're kind of like the prestige. Martin Scorsese is not going to do a direct to DVD movie, you know, like Noah Baumbach is not going to like put out something like those are usually feel like just like the shitty sequels that like can't like after the series has like overstayed its welcome, like, oh, we've released like 12 Chucky movies and like nobody's going to see them in the theater anymore, but we can still make a couple bucks on straight to DVD. Whereas, you know, like if it's something on Hulu, it's like, okay, you can get, you know, Elle Fanning and Nicholas Hoult to do like this kind of like 10-part series on Hulu that's, you know, like it's almost like they almost like skirt the line between prestige TV and like theatrically released movies with a lot of this Hulu, Netflix stuff that they're releasing. So I do feel like it is kind of like a higher echelon of movie than, you know, the straight to DVD movies that we've watched for so long.
You know, but I like to say there are some though that go straight to DVD that are actually bangers that come out and nobody watches because they're straight to DVD, but they were good movies.
I'll put one out there. Lion King 1.5.
Yes, thank you. Oh my God, I was thinking that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was going to throw that one out there, and that's true.
It never showed in the movies?
No, none of the the Disney had this weird thing from like in like the 90s up until like Wreck-It Ralph 2 came out, where they're like, we're just like not gonna make theatrical sequels to all of our hit movies. We're just gonna make and it was because like what happened was like Rescuers like Down Under came out and did really bad. That was like their first sequel, and then
I like that movie.
They like released Return of Jafar on DVD, and it was like the biggest selling DVD of all time. So like this is what we're gonna do. And like that's another Return of Jafar and King of Thieves. If we're talking about like straight to DVD movies, like those are like the top tier. I feel like. Especially King of Thieves.
That's not even fair for. Was it King of Thieves or Prince of Thieves or?
It's King of Thieves, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
They got Sean Connery to be Aladdin's dad.
No, it's John Rhys Davies.
What the hell, really?
Is it John Rhys Davies? Okay, got it.
He's just doing like a Scottish accent.
No.
Just hello, Aladdin.
That's just not fair. Like you're gonna immediately make money if you're getting the dude from Indiana Jones, right?
And getting Robin Williams back too as the genie.
Oh, for the genie in the third film.
I'm not gonna lie, I was surprised about that.
Well, because he quit in the second one. There was like a big falling out between him and Disney. So if you notice in the second Aladdin, the genie sounds a lot more like Homer Simpson. Because Dan Castellaneta came and did that, but then he did come back for the third one for King of Thieves. Robin Williams did.
No, it's so funny we talk about that because literally last night we watched Atlantis, the Disney one.
Love that movie.
Oh, good Lord, that movie is so
on
good.
Our list.
It's good. It's pretty good. I rewatched it again because I hadn't seen it like in 20 years. But like I remember looking on Disney Plus because it has a subtitle. It's like The Lost Kingdom, and then there's like another Atlantis direct to DVD sequel, and I was like, wait. Don't pick the shitty DVD one. I don't want to watch that one. I was like, I want to make sure it's the original. And then we found it. But that's so funny that we talk about that because like I kind of thought of like the Drake meme almost, where it's like
he's like nah,
it's just like straight to DVD, but then it's like now streaming. I fuck with that.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. That I guess I am pretty biased against straight to DVD movies.
It's the thing that it had a bad reputation. The movies weren't always bad. There were some Chucky ones. I know you said Chucky, but there's some Chucky ones that came out recently before the Mark Hamill one that are actually fire. I think the last
I've been
two,
wanting to watch those.
so I saw them so good. You guys are missing out if you guys haven't seen them. They're actually really damn good. But that's the thing. Nobody really watches them because, they're just like straight to DVD stuff that they made. But it's fucking good. They're awesome. And that's the thing. It's the same thing with underrated movies that it is those things. People just have a bias for it already and just go, nah, it ain't good.
I think too, nowadays we kind of put streaming on a pedestal.
Yeah, we have.
Compared to it, because like now it's like, you go to work and you're around the water cooler and it's like, did you binge all of Sabrina last night? No, but I binged all of Narcos last night. And it's like, holy shit. Like and you're literally just releasing it straight to home video essentially. And people are like, fuck it. Yeah, I'm going to like gobble it all up, but straight to DVD, forget about it. I ain't going to watch Leprechaun 7 in space, something like that.
No, Leprechaun in the Hood. Now that was a good one.
I was thinking about that one too. That one was so dumb, but it was funny.
Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yes, that one was. I love the name
because it's not even Manhattan until like
it's
the last
not even
20
Manhattan.
minutes. It should be called Jason on a Boat because that's where most of the movie is.
Yeah, Jason on a boat, but he does like just knock a dude's block off like the most literal way, and it's fucking amazing. I love it.
Oh man. But real fast, I wanted to get back to the movie, what we were kind of saying before. Yeah. And, since you brought up Guy Ritchie, Jason, like the movie, it did remind me of kind of Guy Ritchie, but also Tarantino and Scorsese in differing parts. And I feel like that was something else that helped the characters stand apart and be more recognizable, is because they're kind of, each group is kind of shot in a different way. Whereas you have some of the assassins are kind of shot in that kind of especially like the bail bondsman, Ben Affleck's characters, they're very Guy Ritchie, all that stuff. And then you have, those more straight-laced cops, and that kind of feels like a more gritty, realistic Scorsese movie. And then, you have the over-the-top, like, Nazis and, like, things exploding in slow motion, and, like, there's tiger roars. And that feels maybe more like a Tarantino, just, like, really bloody, explosive movie. And I think that having all these different styles makes the characters feel very distinct and kind of, like, gives you that cool feeling of like, this is a big ensemble kind of movie. There's all these different things going on, and it has all these different things I love about all these different directors kind of being drawn into one thing. And then you have like, it all kind of comes together in that ending that makes it so much more emotionally resonant when it is just like such a fucking powerful scene. Like, you get it all explained by Andy Garcia, and he, like, Ryan Reynolds just sits there and he just yanks the things out, and it's like, I even, like, in my notes I took, like, I just have a note that says that last shot, though, because that final moment is just so much. Like, the entire movie builds all.
Do you want to kind of, like, explain the whole scene and something for the listeners, see if, like, spoilers.
So first off, who was their first time ever seeing it, though? Did all of it?
I don't think anybody.
Yeah,
I had seen it before.
Yeah. Okay, but so can you remember like the first time you saw it? Like, how did that twist kind of like take you? Did it take you by surprise?
That twist fucking hit me. Like I was saying earlier, like I watching the movie, I was like, this is just a fun action movie. And then like when you see that scene and you're like, oh no, this was about something, like that twist. And it's like the best kind of twist, because twists in movies, they tend to go one of two ways. It's either like something where it's like, you can really easily predict it, or it's something where it's like there's no way you could have predicted it. But it hits that like sweet spot like very few movies do, where it makes total sense. Things that they say earlier, like the child support and the surgery, it's like, oh my god, in the moment I thought that was nothing, but it's everything. And so it's like the twist, I was just like, this is fucking brilliant. I had like the Shia LaBeouf clapping in the theater moment when I first saw it. I was like, this is amazing. So basically, for anybody who hasn't seen it or hasn't seen it in a while, to recap what happens at the end is, after Ray Liotta dies and everyone's like, what was happening? Why is there all this death? Like, yeah, so the guy who, went undercover to infiltrate the mob from the FBI in like the 40s, he actually became the mobster. He kind of became his cover, lived it out, and he's been dying. He didn't put the hit out on Buddy Israel. When he said he wanted his heart, it was literal. The Swede, who you think is the assassin, is going to cut out his heart and do a heart transplant. And the FBI has basically been going along with all this on a whim, on a chance that they might get some information out of this, guy who used to be in the FBI 50 years ago. And they have let all this destruction and death happen to their own agents who have been killed. And Ryan Reynolds just kind of at the end, after hearing all this, is like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm done with all this. Pulls the plug out, kills both Buddy Israel and the guy, and just sits there. And it's just like he takes out his gun, he puts down his badge. He's like, I'm done. Like, this is.
He does it in the most poetic way that even to rewatching it right now just hits me so hard, because he basically has this argument, or like yells at Andy Garcia's character about wanting justice and stuff like that, and Andy Garcia, being the deputy director of the FBI, is just like, this is how it is. This is how it is. There's a door if you want it, or just leave. And he's like, are you okay with this? And then he says, yeah. And then once Andy Garcia walks away, he goes in and basically, pulls the plugs. But the way that he lays down his gun and his badge is like, this is my resignation, kind of, is just so poetic. And then thinking back and like thinking of, are they going to, like, what are they going to do with him? How are they going to punish him? And then thinking that they might not punish him, they might just like let him go, because if they're not going to uncover this FBI secret from 50 years ago, they're going to want to keep it quiet. So I think it's like the epiphany, the apex of poetic justice, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because there's actually an alternate ending which they shot but didn't do anything with. That's actually on the DVD that I watched, where like after Andy Garcia gives his speech, Ryan Reynolds just like unloads his gun and just shoots both of them, and that would have been terrible. Like, I would have hated if it ended like that. But you have this. Like,
that's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, you have this slow scene with the music, and like you said, he like lays his gun down and he just sits there and he's like literally crying. I remember like after because I didn't recognize Ryan Reynolds when I first saw it.
Yeah,
I didn't know who it was. I was like, and then it ended. I was like, who was the actor in this? Like, that was a great performance. And I was like, all I knew him from at the time was like, that's Van Wilder. Like, he's got those dramatic chops. And it blew me
I guess
away.
you've never seen, because Blade Trinity came out before this, and he had a beard then, so I knew it was Ryan Reynolds going into watching it. But yeah, it's just that scene alone shows how much range like Ryan Reynolds, given the chance, can have, and it's such a great acting wise like moment. Like, he's crying, but at the same time he's like has this slight smile on his face, because he knows that he got justice for his partner, for all of the his fellow agents that died. It's just kind of like this, like, he essentially threw out his career and possibly his life away, but he did it for a meaningful thing. So you get all of that emotion and all of that meaning, and just from his face, and just the final scene of like, in the zoom in on him, and just him like just putting his head down, is just like really good cinema.
Yeah, a real talk. I want him to blast everybody, but that's just me at that point. Because I mean, everything you guys said, it makes sense. It's at the end, I felt that he wanted to get some revenge, because talking to his boss was like, "So you let my partner die all over this?" I could have seen him shoot them both. That would have been kind of cool. But the unplugging the thing, the first time I saw it, I thought he was going to shoot himself in the head.
Mm-hmm. I thought so too.
Because I thought he was going to unplug it and he was going to shoot himself in the head. Because I just thought, well, that's the way to go out, right? So that way they don't put you in jail, or they don't whatever, and you're done. Him putting his badge down and stuff, that was cool. I did see that I think it was like the deleted scene where he shoots the guys. Because I was like, I remember him shooting them. I don't know why he unplugged it. But yeah, that either way, I mean, the way I see it, he got his revenge, and I thought that was cool. A good way to end it. Them trying to break in and stuff like that just shows how much they wanted him. But him unplugging it, I was down with that. That was the way I wanted it. I was like, man, these fucks are gonna get to live. I don't think so. So him doing that, I thought was cool.
Well, it's a way of showing mercy, and just also like getting revenge.
Well, no, because they were both pretty much dead. I mean, the only thing keeping them alive was being plugged in. Because the one guy, they stopped his heart, I think, and then the other guy, well, his heart was already stopping, so they had to swap him to live. So I mean, he could have shot them, but I mean,
I think it shows a lot more of like it's not vengeful, whereas it's revenge. Just unplugging them. Like, I don't know, and just maybe the slow decline. Yeah, just maybe the slow decline too, because like if you shot, like that's sudden, but to have these people trying desperately to try to break in while they watch these people kind of slowly die. I guess
because my only thought was like, what if they got in and then they try to like pump this other guy's heart back to get him moving again? I was like, you shoot them in the heart and they're done. Like you dusted them and then nobody gets to come back. It was a good ending though. I mean, I agree with everything you guys said. It really makes you, it really hits you in the feel seeing him mourn for his fallen comrade.
Yeah.
If I can ask a question too, are there like certain things in films that because you have knowledge of it outside of a film, it takes you out of the film itself? Because for me personally, I have a problem with firearms and how they're and how they're used at times as well, right? Like how people just how people treat firearms in general. Just because like when you're like a federal agent and all that stuff, there's a very specific way that you're trained in order to pull your service weapon, in order to aim and shoot and things like that. And that scene where Ray Liotta and oh gosh, the Hispanic assassin, the one with like
yes,
Mr. Carbonell.
Yeah,
character.
the one with like the Assassin's Creed knife.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So when they're in the scene, he actually shoots from the hip, which is not really something that you train for when you learn to shoot from like a state or federal entity, right? So I was like, oh, okay, like he probably wouldn't have shot like that. Or like the police officer at the very end when he kills Chris Pine. Like he doesn't even look at him. And then that gun was buried for like 20 years, and that
and it still worked fine, right?
Worked perfectly.
Yeah. I
so like it's like things like that. So like, are there things for you guys in film that immediately take you out of the scene because you know a whole bunch about it outside of the film?
Have you guys ever seen anyone play a video game in a movie fucking ever? Because I don't know what people are doing when they pretend to play video games in movies.
Oh yeah, it's
but
horrible.
Like 99.9% of the time, they're just like people like not even looking at anything. The sounds on the screen don't match what they're doing. They're just like rapidly smashing the controller, and I'm like,
yeah, they're like, whoa,
my
god,
that's the biggest. There's other things, but that's the biggest one. It's just they're just like, and they're like rotating the controller like every which way, even if it's like not a motion, if it's like a GameCube controller, and they're just like leaning back and forward. I'm just like, has no one played video games are popular? How do people not know in movies how to make video games look realistic?
Yeah, it takes a lot for something to take me out of a movie. I tend to be okay with suspending disbelief while I watch a movie. The thing that takes me out of a movie is more dialogue and storyline, I guess, like where it's that it just completely does not make sense, or what they say or something like that just completely takes me out of the movie. Like the biggest one that's ever taken me out of a movie was like, as it's known by many of us, is Fantastic, the horrible Fantastic.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard numerous.
The one with Chris Evans or the new one?
The new one.
The new one.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Like,
but
I'm sorry, what?
No.
Chris Evans was good as a Human Torch.
He was good.
It was great.
Yeah. But anyway, so Fantastic kind of just took me out of it because just the storyline didn't make sense. Like how things worked and how things are like working out, especially being a comic book fan and like that kind of thing. So I guess more it's like if they completely throw, something that, like, especially with comic book movies, just throw it in the trash and then come up with their own idea. Yeah, that takes me out of it. Like with that movie, I from walking out of the theater to my car, I basically rewrote a better script than them, or a better storyline than them. So it's those kind of things that take me out of it. And also like, yeah, actors' chemistry can take me out of it if they're not mashing, if it's just bad acting and stuff.
I was gonna say with the whole gun thing, I completely understand. Like when I watch some of the car movies or some of the stuff that goes on with that, I can relate when you hear them say either the wrong thing or the way they're shifting or the way they're driving, that you can kind of tell that they're not, like it's not right. You're like, well, obviously I drive a car and you know I know about performance parts and stuff. There's no way that would fall off or that would do that, or jumping from one car to another. You're like, nah, dog, that doesn't happen.
Does
like
Fast and Furious just give you like the worst anxiety ever?
So,
then
look, it's a hard love and hate, right? So you don't get a lot of movies that somewhat deal with certain things. Like, okay, the original Fast and the Furious, you give it a break, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's a little over the top. A lot of their car, like the car racing and the car meets they did, were more like the car shows than the actual car meets where you would go meet up with people. Because a lot of time you would meet up like in and out or a parking lot. So there's a shit ton of cars and there's a lot of music and there was stuff. But most of the people didn't race there. You would meet up there, you would talk about it, and then they'd go somewhere else to go race. And you can go watch. So I mean, there's people films and YouTube videos you can watch about people doing street racing back in the day, and some of that's true. But now this whole like go dancing and some of the stuff that they do in these warehouses, I mean, that was more like the car show scene, like that they kind of like aggregated it together. So in a way, you give the first movie a break. Now the other movies, that's where it gets a little cringy, because you're like, well, they stopped being about like the street racing like lifestyle thing and more of a heist movie with cars.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like the Ferrari, or I can't remember what car it was, Ferrari or one of those supercars that jumps
building
out of like a penthouse building, and like I think it was like Dubai, and then lands in another one, and you go, that wouldn't have happened. There's no physical way a car wouldn't do that. You're gonna die. You're gonna hit something and you're gonna die. Even if the car did make it from one building to another, like let's say you can do that. But there's no way that a super sports car like that is meant to even fly in the air like that. Like there's no way. Logistically, there's no way. You're just gonna die. Maybe a monster truck. I could see you a monster truck. They have suspension for it, but there's no way a car that can go that fast is gonna land just fine. I mean, Paul Walker wrapped himself around a damn tree and he died.
Oh, damn it.
So let's be real. Like I mean, that's just real life right there. Like if you go, yeah, the movie's really like, I watch him and I try to watch him just to watch him, but there's times where I go, oh fuck, really? In the middle of the movie. I mean, I like him. I'll tell you this. I'm a diehard fan for all those movies. Every single one of them. The cars are great. I mean, they still get the cars right. All the cars are badass. They're all still fixed up nice. I mean, they still get that part. But everything else is just like, you can't pull a safe with a fucking Charger. You can't. I don't care who you are. You can't. It's not possible.
It's as much as you can't put a safe back with the...
Yeah, like Batman. Yeah, like putting the safe with a batarang. Again, I don't know what you're using, but no, you can't. But yeah, I do feel you there. That when it seems like when you're more knowledgeable or you have some kind of idea of it, when they execute it, it seems to be like the small pet peeves I think of the individual of us that know it, that you kind of pick apart and go, well, that's not right. Like that could be. Everybody else looks at you and goes, well, what are you talking about? Like, so he shot him. I would have no, but you wouldn't have. You wouldn't have like the manifold like. Anyways, don't get me started with Fast and Furious, but yeah, there's things where you're like, that wouldn't happen. That just wouldn't happen.
To answer your question though, real quick, kind of jumping off of Fred's thing, I love that. I live for that shit. I love moments that pull me out of the movie because it's so ridiculous. I absolutely love it. Like when you were saying that the car going into another building, like in Dubai, when I saw that, I was like, wow, that shouldn't even be possible. I love it.
It's not possible.
Whenever my favorite is the movie magic stuff where continuity errors are my fucking favorite. Just because like have you guys seen Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger? There's a scene where he's there's a whole battle scene and there's like a yellow Porsche, I think, and it gets completely destroyed. Like it's destroyed. And like you see it in the background, and then like Arnold's like, come on, let's go over here. And then they go, and then right behind them, the Porsche brand spanking new. And I always look at shit like that, and I'm like, that should have took me out, but I'm like, I love it. Give me more. I love having unlimited ammo on like a 9mm. Like you keep shooting for like hours. I'm like, makes sense.
Oh, that kills me the most.
Every time.
Yeah.
I love it.
How long is the
so
runway
funny.
in that one movie?
Oh my god, yeah. There's like the one where Gal Gadot dies. Yeah, the runway was like from like San Diego to New York, I think.
Because I actually haven't seen any of those movies, but I worked at the movie theater when whatever that one was coming out, and I remember you'd have to like go in and like see what shit was going down.
You know
and
what?
I went in and I went into the theater and there was like a runway scene, and then I came back 20 minutes later and they're still on the same runway, and I'm like, what is happening right now?
Look, I'll give them a pass. We don't know if they're going through the whole runway. I mean, because
you don't know if they're going back and forth through the runway.
Yeah, because you think the main runway is a straightaway. It is, but if you're ever in an airport or even like the small airports, they've got like runways that you have to like spin around and drive around before you get to the main runway. So maybe I give them a break. Maybe they were driving around the whole thing before they got to the main part.
And there's one more thing too I want to mention that I feel like you guys might be able to relate to that always just like takes me out of a movie, and it's whenever they're doing like computer shit in a movie that came out like before The Matrix. So I feel like 90s filmmakers just didn't really understand how computers or hacking worked. And like I'm not a hacker, I don't know coding, but like it's still to the point where like my brother who is like a coder, like I'll see him like coding something and I'll just be like, Mitchell, you know how this works, right? It's a Unix system.
My with typing also, one of my favorite scenes. It's from an episode of NCIS.
The one where I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and Abby is like who's their tech expert. Somebody starts breaking into her computer. So then one of the dudes scoots her over and they both start typing on the same keyboard.
like Julian Pianos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're like, oh, we can't hack past it. If both of us need to type. I'm like, do you know how a computer works? Like what?
Yeah.
And that was like something that came out like in like the mid 2000s. Like you should definitely know how computers work at this point.
My favorite is it's not in movies. I wish they would do it in movies because I'd fucking die. But it's like they're the stock images of what hackers are, and a hacker in a stock image is a dude in a balaclava or a ski mask with a gun next to his laptop, and he's typing maliciously. And I'm like, oh shit, he's hacking the Pentagon. He has a gun right next to him. Oh my god, he's wearing a balaclava. I love that shit.
Well, was there any other thoughts that you guys had on the movie?
Not on that movie, but the best hacking was Swordfish. I just gotta say.
Oh my god, I remember that.
Literally, all I know about that movie is that's the movie that people are like, "Oh, Halle Berry's boobs." That's all I know about the entire.
Listen, that's all you need to know.
If you want to know,
it's Wolverine and Storm. There you go.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's Wolverine and Storm.
I didn't even know Hugh Jackman was in it.
Yeah, he's a hacker.
It's a gigantic waste of Hugh Jackman.
Yeah. It's
he's a hacker.
John
he
Travolta
wears a balaclava with a gun next to his laptop.
And then it ends in clones.
Something like that, yeah.
Clones.
Here's the craziest part. So to like, and I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but to see about how good of a hacker he is, they make him get a blowjob while he's hacking the computer and see how fast he can do it. So I'm like,
oh my god, I don't even remember. That's hilarious.
Yeah. It's a really awful and misogynistic scene.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Yeah.
But I mean, every film at that point was pretty awful and misogynistic.
That's what I was gonna say. This sounds like the most 2002 movie I've ever heard of.
It's about that time, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It worked for the time. I remember watching it, going like, "This is a man's movie." I was like, Halle Berry, how we doing?
You know what happens when a toad gets struck by lightning? The same thing that happens to everything else.
Oh god, just the worst line.
I love it.
The early 2000s were truly dark days.
Mm-hmm.
Early 2000s comic book movies were very hit or miss.
Not great.
Yeah.
I think like for a while it was like from like 95 to like 2005 there was this era of just like you go watch Fantastic Four and Ghost Rider and you're like they're kind of like I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like I remember somebody said that Venom was the way to describe it, it's the third best comic book movie of 2005. I feel like that's the most accurate thing I've ever heard.
Accurate, dude. Hell yeah.
Yeah, and I think especially with those comic book films that came out during that time, like I think we were just like just us as nerds were just so hungry for something like that that like we had to prop it up, right? We had to give our money to it. Mm-hmm. It was like all of us were in the desert and we got to taste water for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, and then after that, like I mean, just after the first Iron Man, then it was just all
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think like for the absolute most part, after 2005, I do agree with you. The comic book films were more than decent.
Definitely. But yeah, any last words on the film?
Just watch it. It is a really good action movie. And with a really good twist, and yeah, it especially cinematically, that final scene. There's this Instagram account that I follow called That Final Scene, and I'm surprised that this one isn't on it, because it's a really good final scene. Definitely.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the way that the director described it us on an interview is like, he said he wanted to make an intellectual drive-in movie, and I feel like that really does a good job of describing what this is, because it is kind of like those old grindhouse movies, but like about something deeper. There's all this stuff about like, are we who we pretend to be, or are we not? Like, another really great scene that other than the final scene that really stands out is that scene where Jeremy Piven's like looking in the mirror, and he's got one contact in, and he's just like high in coke, and he's like keeps switching his hands between the eye without the contact and the one with it. And I think it does that good job of just like, boom, like being a big shoot 'em up movie while also like saying something deeper. And I think that's why the movie might not have gotten the greatest reviews, is because on the surface it just does seem like a generic shoot 'em up action movie. But if you go and rewatch it a second time or really think about it afterwards, it does have these more interesting aspects.
I think for me, I truly 100% believe that Common and Alicia just love child from this movie specifically.
Oh my god! Yeah.
That's some of the best like quick character chemistry that I've seen in a film. And this was both their very first feature film, so I'm 100% convinced that they have a love child from them.
Oh yeah, honestly, I completely agree with that. When I saw it, I was like, this is so much. I'm like, they have to be sleeping with each other in real life. I'm like, they have to be like, this is so like, whoa. I mean, maybe they just killed it right out of the ballpark, knocked it out of the ballpark right away, but I was like, they've had to like gotten down. Like, they've had to.
Yeah. No, I agree with all of you guys. I think if anything, just for the action alone, let's just say you don't like heavy story or anything like that. Just for the action alone, it's right up there with like John Wick and some of these other movies with action of its time. So I think, give it a shot, and then you'll be pleasantly surprised with the way the story goes.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you guys for listening.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jason, for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for showing up. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Where can
hope you liked it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Where can people find you and stuff? Do you want to drop any of your socials or plug your podcast or anything like that?
Oh, thank you. So I am one of the co-hosts for a show called In Quest of Geek. You can find us on any of the social medias at In Quest of Geek. We are a multi-platform production that releases weekly podcasts. We do Twitch streams, and then we're about to release an actual play RPG as well. So you can find us there, and if you want to hear anything about pop culture, listen to us second, listen to this show first.
Thank you.
Too kind. Well, yeah. Thank you guys for listening, and if you want to, do the same and check us out on social media. We're Undercast Company on Instagram and Facebook and all the places like that. And if you guys like what you hear, please give us 5 stars on iTunes or subscribe to us and check us out. We do also have another podcast coming up that Ariel is kind of heading up called You Haven't Seen, which is about movies that we probably should have seen at this point that we just haven't. So, the first episode is going to be about me and Ariel had not seen American Psycho, which was suggested to us by Alan, so we watched that. So keep an eye out for that one. But yeah, or just if you guys have any suggestions or want to ask us any questions, just send us an email at undercastcompany@gmail.com. But that about does it, guys. And I'll see you in another life.
Thanks for being amazing.
Thank you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good one.
I'm Ray, and I quit smoking with Chantix.